RaiderNation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Rentz here, host of the Raiders Report, and today's show is sponsored by 8 Sleep. I probably look refreshed. Why? It's because I've been getting the best sleep I have ever had thanks to our sponsor, 8 Sleep. And if you don't sleep well, or the number one reason why you should get this is because when you go to bed, if your wife's significant other is always cold, but you're always warm, literally my situation, then go to 8sleep.com/chatsports. That link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments and down in the description of today's show. Coming up here on the Raiders Report, I got NFL Combine news that everybody that rocks with the silver and black needs to know. On top of that, I'm going to go into some Combine winners and losers so far. I will say, when I made this show, the Combine winners and losers results were only for the defensive line and for the linebackers. As I'm recording this video, I know that the cornerbacks and the positions are going right now. So all that you're going to see from my winners and losers is based on defensive line and some linebackers. If you're looking for more NFL Combine news that impacts the Las Vegas Raiders, make sure you click that subscribe button. We got our chat sports team out in Indy, and over the past 3 years, we used to send out just Tom, and then this year, we were able to send out, I want to say, 6 people to the Combine. The fact that we were able to do that, we're getting more intel, we're getting more information. You've probably seen the amount of videos that we've been posting on the Raiders Report. Check out our shorts, a lot of Combine interviews. If you like that type of content, hit that subscribe button. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tell you basically how all the meetings went or what we have heard about the Raiders meeting. So Nick spoke to the media today, said that he met with the Raiders and really was hyping up this organization quite a bit. Didn't really want to get into too much details, one of the things that he said. However, a source reached out to me and said that he thought that Nick's crushed his interview with the Silver and Black. Let's now go to J.J. McCarthy, and McCarthy is another very intriguing prospect here. Said that he would love the opportunity to play for the Raiders, and one of the things when you talk a lot about Combine in these meetings, it's a lot of, this guy's great, meeting went well, love the organization. J.J. McCarthy, though, based out of what I'm being told, his interview was one of the best ones that the Raiders had in terms of one of the qualities that Telesco really looks for in a quarterback is leadership. And from what I was told, McCarthy might be at the top of the list of leadership from the quarterbacks that the Raiders met with. Let's now go to Drake Maye. Drake Maye is there's some ups and there's some downs on him. I was told that the Raiders might be a little bit worried about how laid back Drake Maye is. However, Maye's got unbelievable arm talent. He's a quarterback that I freaking love. I don't know if he's on the Raiders' high priority list. To me, though, he's got the best arm in this year's class, and I can't wait to see what he ends up looking like. Caleb Williams had might surprise you, the largest crowd around him at the Combine today. He did not let teams see his medical. Only teams that met with him are able to see his medical, and the way that he proved it or said it was like, not every team's going to have the opportunity to get me. I don't know why I'm going to make it public. I will say some people don't like some of the things that Caleb Williams is doing, but Caleb is doing it because he knows that he can. He believes that he's going to be the number 1 pick, and I believe that he's going to be the number 1 pick in this year's draft on top of that. The most interesting meeting is Spencer Rattler, and I think right now the player that I am the most intrigued by, and the homework assignment that I have given myself and the homework assignment that I'm going to give all of Raider Nation this weekend is I want you to watch Spencer Rattler film. If there is a quarterback that I think could creep up into round 1 that people are not talking about, it's Spencer Rattler. I'm not saying that the Raiders are going to take him at 13, but there's a lot of conversation of, should we pass on a QB at 13 and then trade back up in round 1, or could we potentially take a QB at 44? There's a lot more smoke around Rattler going a lot higher than what anybody thought that was possible, but the smoke continues to go and go and go. I was told, though, that Rattler had a very good meeting with the Raiders, and he likes the organization a lot. He really likes Antonio Pierce. I was also told that the worry of him being a locker room cancer has now been thrown out the window. Coming up here, how Jayden Daniels meeting went, because let's face it, Jayden Daniels is the poster boy. Jayden Daniels is the quarterback that this organization wants. That does not mean, though, that it's going to be the quarterback that the Raiders end up getting. So coming up, I'll tell you how Jayden Daniels' meeting went with the Silver and Black. If you don't know, though, today's sponsor, 8 Sleep, and this is an absolute game changer out there. I sweat all the time. I mean, you can probably tell right now I'm sweating. When I sleep, I like to be ice cold. And I don't know if it's just me or, it's a weird thing to say. Chugs, you can hear me out on this. when I put my leg out, there's always a part of me that feels like somebody's going to, from underneath the bed, going to like grab my leg. And it's kind of a weird thing. I know as an adult, it's weird to say that. I feel like it's like the same thing as adult when I jump into a pool. I always think like, is a shark in the water? Now with 8 sleep, I can sleep perfectly fine, and my body temperature is nice and cool because I can get down to 55 degrees. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, listen to this. The cover can be added to any bed like a fitted sheet and allows you and your partner to cool or warm your side of the bed as low as 55 degrees and up to 110 degrees. I love 8 Sleep because it has totally stopped my night sweats. I like to snuggle with my dog Chuck, and Alex and I, we snuggled a little bit last night on our anniversary. However, though, they're both very warm, and thanks to 8 Sleep, I don't wake up sweating and get a better night's sleep. Go to 8sleep.com/chatsports and get $200 off plus free shipping on the pod cover by 8 Sleep. Start the new year right and invest in the rest you deserve with the 8 Sleep pod. In addition to keeping you at the perfect temperature all night, the pod also tracks your sleep and health metrics. On average, pod users see their sleep quality improve by 32% after just a month on the pod. When I tell you it tracks your sleep, and I do find this to be very interesting because and we'll just be real here. When you go out and you have a few drinks, right? My fiance Alex and I, it was our 4-year anniversary. We had some drinks last night. And when you wake up after a night of a few drinks, you wake up probably a little bit tired. What's amazing is it gives you like your results on a night's sleep. I can tell you right now, I slept like crap last night. And some of you are probably looking at me right now like, yeah, Mitch, you might look like you didn't sleep very well. Here's the problem, though. When you don't sleep well, it tells you, and when I see that I don't sleep well, it kind of motivates me the next night to be like, I got to get a better night's sleep. Shout out to 8 Sleep for totally changing the game, and I want you to check these guys out. Go to 8sleep.com/chatsports. That link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments and in the description of today's show. All right, so let's talk about Jayden Daniels here at the Combine. And my clear message to you is the Raiders want Jayden Daniels. I'm not going to sit up here and say Jayden wants to be a Raider, but I am going to tell you that if I were to ask Jayden who he wants to play for the most, my gut reaction is he wants to play for Antonio Pierce. He wants to be a member of the Las Vegas Raiders just because he believes in this coaching staff. The meeting went very, very well. Both sides know each other. For those that don't know, Antonio Pierce, Jayden, they go all the way back from when he was 14. Antonio, made jokes like, hey, man, I knew the guy when he was 150 pounds soaking wet. They love each other. Like, there is a legitimate relationship connection there, and Jayden's their guy. He's the dude that they want to go after. And I thought it was really interesting because today Jayden was on CBS and was asked about the Raiders and was asked about, Antonio Pierce, and he said, on draft day, if I hear my phone ring and it's Antonio Pierce, I don't know what I do. And when you see when he says that, the smile, the grin, it makes me think of when Antonio Pierce was talking about Jayden Daniels. Like, people can say what they want, and they might not always reveal the whole story. When you see somebody's body language and when you see a young man's face light up, like Antonio Pierce talking about Jayden Daniels gives me like proud dad vibes. Jayden Daniels talking about Antonio Pierce gives me like he wants to make his dad proud, his dad proud type of vibes. Like, I know Jayden and Antonio Pierce's relationship is solid, and after the Combine and some of the information that I've been given, I know for a fact that the Raiders want Jayden Daniels, man. So which quarterback do you think the Las Vegas Raiders are most likely to draft in 2024? I put out a video probably about a few weeks ago at this point, ranking which quarterbacks I believe are the most likely to be selected by the Silver and Black, and based off of some of the information that I've been given, I'm going to have to make a new video because there's some other quarterbacks that have been climbing, some other quarterbacks that have been dropping down a little bit. To me, the quarterback that is most likely to be drafted by the Silver and Black as it stands right now, I will say Jayden Daniels. Like, I will say that. I'm not afraid to say that because he's their plan A. Their plan A, and it's always been that, it's Jayden. Now, just because I say that, it's still probably like a 10% chance of it happening, and the Raiders have so many other quarterbacks that they could potentially look at. Another sneaky name, though, to keep in mind, I'm telling you this, is Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler is climbing the Raiders draft board at a very rapid pace. We're going to go into some other news and notes that have happened at the Combine today, and one of the players, Jalen McMillan, who wide receiver from Washington, spoke very highly about Tay and said that out of all the NFL receivers, he respects Davante Adams the most. I talked about Max Crosby yesterday on the Raiders Report saying, like, which this is not going to surprise anybody out there, a lot of defensive linemen value Max Crosby. They model their game after him. A lot of wide receivers in this year's class love Davante Adams and try to model their game around him. Like Odunze said that the number one receiver he tries to, model is Davante Adams. Yes, he is from Las Vegas. He's a phenomenal receiver. I'm curious to see where Rome goes. To me, he's going to be a top 10 pick. Like Malik Nabers even spoke at the Combine and said that he hasn't met with the Raiders, but hopes to meet with the Raiders. And I think that's more of the Antonio Pierce, Jayden Daniels type of connection there. Other receivers, though, like A.D. Mitchell, wide receiver from Texas, said that he met with the Raiders. He's a speedster, or maybe not speedster. He's a fast receiver. But, like, that's another guy who said, I love Davante Adams, and I model my game after him. Coming up next here on the show, though, we're going to get into some Combine winners and losers. And, again, this is based off the defensive line and the linebacker position. Well, I do have a lot more winners than I do losers, and these are based off the information that I have received from our guys at the Combine. So I asked one of our dudes at the Combine, I said, give me your grades on, like, the top defensive linemen. And so the defensive linemen that I asked for grades on were these 6 players right here. I asked for a grade for Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, Byron Murphy, Bralen Trice, Latu, and Chop Robinson. He said that Verse had an A, Dallas Turner had an A. However, he thought that Verse was a little bit better. And this goes on with metrics, measurables, all that kind of good stuff. He gave Byron Murphy an A-. Chop Robinson a B. And the biggest knock on him, I want to say, was the arm length, or the length, like it was the shortest arm length for a player at his size since like 1999, I believe is what I was told. Latu got a B, and then Bralen Trice C+. It's not that Bralen was bad. I wanted Bralen Trice's information because he spoke about Crosby a lot. It's just the problem is he's just not nearly the athlete that these other players are. Let's now get into some Combine winners. Branden Fiske was probably the biggest winner from the Combine at the defensive tackle position. I mean, he was unbelievable. When you look at metrics and all the players that have ever been in the NFL Combine, I want to say he's like in the 97th percentile in terms of athletes. Like, Fiske ranked first among defensive line and 40-yard dash time. So for a man of his size to be able to run 4.78 is unbelievable. A 10-yard split at 1.68, and then a broad jump at 9 feet 9 inches. I mean, it shows everything that he do. The explosion, the acceleration. Branden Fiske, I believe I have him as my 6th or 7th ranked DT, which really shot up the board, and I'm glad I got on the hype train before he ended up getting to the Combine. The next name here, I've asked multiple times how to pronounce it. The defensive tackle from Clemson, we're just going to call him Ruke, and this is another person who dominated at the Combine. If it wasn't for Fiske being so good, I think the NFL community would talk about him a lot more than what he's getting credit for. For somebody who's as big as he is, like, the numbers that he put up, he finished second in the broad jump at 9 feet 8 inches, had the second fastest 10-yard split among defensive linemen. His 40-yard dash was 4.89 and a vertical jump of 32 inches, each ranked 4th. Like, he was very good considering the expectation. Like, I want to say that I have him as my 9th or 8th best DT, which might even be a little bit higher for some people. I think now you're going to see him as a clear-cut top 10 defensive tackle in this year's class. Let's go to Payton Wilson. Payton Wilson, man, this is a round of applause, and I'm happy, especially when you consider the fact that I knew that he was going to do well. I didn't know he was going to run a 4.43 40-yard dash. For a player who had 2 ACL tears, like, I tore my ACL, and I know how much that zapped my athletic ability. For somebody like Wilson, it just shows that he's willing to put in the time and the effort, and if he's able to stay healthy, he could be the best linebacker in this year's class. And if the Raiders were able to get him, I don't know if he's going to be at pick 77. If he's on the board, though, at pick 77, I think the Raiders are going to be very intrigued by Payton Wilson. Let's go to another winner here from the Combine, Edgerrin Cooper. And when you talk about some of the top linebackers in this year's class, based on some conversations that I've had, one of the scouts that I talked to at the Combine told me that Edgerrin Cooper is the number 1 linebacker in this year's class. 34-inch arms is, like, remember how the NFL community freaked out with Tyree Wilson and his, I was going to say spread, but that just sounds weird, wingspan? It's kind of the exact same thing here with Edgerrin Cooper. Like, people are going to love the idea that you can line him up as an edge. You can line him up as a linebacker. Very athletic player overall. 4.51 second 40-yard dash. 1.54 second 10-yard split. If I'm Edgerrin Cooper, I might even flirt with the idea of adding 10 to 20 pounds if you can still keep that athletic ability and being an edge rusher in the NFL, especially with those long arms. Another winner, which does not surprise me, Trevin Wallace. This was definitely one of my players that I told all of y'all to go out and watch this weekend because he is a very good athlete. He worked with Rob Leonard at the Senior Bowl, and he ran a 4.51 second 40-yard dash with a 1.62 second 10-yard split. His impressive showing continued with a 37.5-inch vertical and a 10-foot 7-inch broad jump. I knew Trevin Wallace was an explosive athlete. Those numbers are very high, though. When it comes to the linebacker position, don't get me wrong, 40-yard dash times are important, and I really like, though, the broad jump, vertical jump, because I want to see explosion. Like, when you call hike, how quick are you able to get off the line of scrimmage? And he definitely showed that he is an explosive athlete. Coming up next here, NFL Combine losers so far. And this is probably the worst part of doing this show because you don't like to ever call somebody a loser. And just because you're calling them a Combine loser doesn't mean that they're not going to have a good NFL career, right? Like, it's just based on metrics. These are guys that did not do as well. Before I get into that, I do want to give a shout out to the Noti Gang. If you don't know who the Noti Gang is, it's the first people that comment on a Raiders video. And shout out to Carly Krugers, Gadilla, my man Raider Sancha, who just banged here on the show, Andrew Santana on top of that. If you want to be a part of the Noti Gang, subscribe, turn on those notifications. When I drop a video, try to be one of the very first people to comment. In terms of the losers, Johnny Newton did not test, but because a lot of the other defensive tackles did so well, I'll just say that he was a loser. Like, entering the Combine, I think if you would have asked 100 scouts who's the number one defensive tackle in this year's class, I'll say 50 would have said Johnny, a.k.a. Jerzon Newton. Now I'm going to go, that number might be a little bit lower because he did not test, and I think Byron Murphy now is the consensus number one. Devondre Sweat, I never really expected to perform well, and he's just such a big guy. Like, he's going to be a better football player than he is a tester. Leonard Taylor, I was upset about. I'm not going to lie. Like, I've had Leonard Taylor in a few of my mock drafts. I don't know if he goes now in round 2. And then Austin Booker at edge. I actually think that he was the edge from Kansas was the one I was looking for. However, it wasn't from Minnesota. I want to say it was from Kansas. So he's just not nearly as athletic as some of the other edges out there. If you want more videos here from the Raiders Report, make sure you're subscribed. Again, a lot of NFL Combine news and notes. If you're watching this live, we're about to turn up. We're about to have a good time. Remember, we go live every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific, and on Fridays, it's Friday Happy Hour. So if you're feeling a little lucky, if you feel like hanging out with the nation, pull up right now here on the show. Appreciate each and every one of y'all for tuning into the show. If I missed any Combine winners or losers, let me know down in the comments. Believe it or not, I look a lot more often than I think people believe. So, Combine winners or losers, that's what I want to see here on the Raiders Report.